Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you our final GE Top 25 of the season. We are just 6 days away from Selection Sunday, which means we are 6 days away from finding out which 4 teams will make the college football playoff, which teams will make a New Year's Six bowl game, and of course we will also find out the postseason destinations for all of the other teams as well. So today we are sharing with you our own set of rankings. Nothing like the playoff committee, nothing like the AP poll, our own rankings based on our own criteria. All 25 teams, we're going to break them down just like we've been doing for the past 3 to 4 weeks now. And on Sunday, early morning on Sunday, in our conference championship / week 16 recap, we will rank our top 6 teams. Just our top 6, showing you who we believe should make the college football playoff. Those teams will be released hours before the committee releases theirs. So you will get one last tiny set of rankings before the committee releases their final set, but of course it will just be 6 and not a full top 25. This is the final full set we will do for this 2020 season. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Got a lot of shakeups, guys. Week 15, as we mentioned, proved to be more eventful and more exciting than we thought. And of course, we're happy with that. Who wouldn't be? So we're going to take a look at this first column here, the top 10 teams. And I would say these teams here, for the most part, are the ones that are going to be contending for one of those top 4 spots this upcoming weekend. One of those top 4 spots in conference championship weekend. Up at the top, we have Alabama, the number 1 team in the country. And again, you really can't argue and dispute and complain with the top 5 teams in the country right now. There's no way, to me, that you could swap any teams out, change any order. Alabama, they just dismantled Arkansas 52-3. They will be playing Florida in the SEC championship game. The Crimson Tide are number 1, and they're basically a lock for the college football playoff. Followed by Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, and Texas A&M. Those 4 teams, not a single one of them played this last weekend. Ohio State and Texas A&M, their games canceled. The ACC saying both Notre Dame and Clemson were done just last week. Those 2 teams getting ready to meet in the ACC title game this Saturday. So, top 5 teams, can't argue, can't dispute. We're going to break down the playoff scenarios later this weekend or later in the week so we can kind of give you an idea of how each team can find themselves in the Final Four. But the top 5 teams there, the only thing I could argue with and the only thing that we could discuss, and we'll discuss it later in the week, is Ohio State sitting at number 4 right now, and how the Big Ten catered to the Buckeyes, allowing them to play in the Big Ten championship this weekend against Northwestern. Remember, early on, when the Big Ten decided they were going to come out of the woodworks to play football, because they basically got peer pressured into doing it, they said that you had to play a minimum of 6 games to make the Big Ten championship. Because Ohio State's game against Michigan was canceled, the Buckeyes were not going to meet that 6-game minimum. So the Big Ten magically, just like that, magically allowed Ohio State to make the Big Ten championship. They changed the rules. They said, forget about it. We don't have to have a 6-game minimum. We were just joking about that. Because you're Ohio State and because you're really our only chance of getting a team into the college football playoff this year, we'll make an exception for you. Go play Northwestern, and if you win that game, the Buckeyes more than likely are going into the playoff after only winning 6 games. Doesn't sound right to me. Doesn't sound fair to me. Would the Big Ten have done that for Indiana? Would the Big Ten have done that for Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan, any other team but Ohio State? I don't know. My gut says probably not. But nonetheless, Ohio State, they're up there. They're going to go to the playoff. Whether you agree with it or not, they're going to the playoff as long as they beat Northwestern on Saturday. So while they might not be the top 4 team in the country based on resume, based on the amount of games they've played, kind of unfair, they're going to be there. Just got to accept it. Texas A&M at 5, Cincinnati in at 6. You see a couple teams that are shifting up here because of Florida's loss to LSU. We'll touch on that in a little bit. You can see the Gators dropping a lot in our top 25. But Cincinnati moving up 1 spot. They did not play this weekend. They were supposed to play Tulsa and then play Tulsa again this Saturday. Instead, they will have just one game only against the Golden Hurricane in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. Big game coming up for Cincinnati. I know the committee put Iowa State above Cincinnati in last week's rankings, but regardless, if the Bearcats get a little help, they are still slightly in the mix for a college football playoff berth. It's not likely, but it is possible. We have them in at number 6. Big game against Tulsa coming up again on Saturday. Iowa State in at number 7. They, with 2 losses, believe it or not, are slightly in the mix for the college football playoff. They need some help. And we're going to break down all those scenarios later in the week. But the Cyclones, a huge game against Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship on Saturday morning. If they win that and get some help, they have a very good case to get in to that Final Four. But the Cyclones in at number 7, a spot they absolutely deserve, and very well could be 6 in Tuesday's rankings released by the committee. Indiana in at number 8. They also moved up a spot for us. They did not play. Actually, every team from Notre Dame to Indiana did not play this last weekend, whether it was because their schedule was done, maybe it was because of COVID cancellations. But regardless, teams 2 through 8 here, none of them played this last weekend in Week 15. The Hoosiers, though, moving up a spot in our rankings. They have Purdue, hopefully, coming up on Saturday. Georgia cracking our top 10 now. Number 9 for the Bulldogs and Kirby Smart. We have them jumping 4 spots. We had Georgia in at number 13. Have them jumping up 4 spots over a team like Coastal Carolina, over Oklahoma, over USC, even though the Bulldogs were above USC in our rankings last week anyways. The reason we did that was because Georgia is clicking on all cylinders right now. You really can't help but wonder, where would the Bulldogs be if they had started JT Daniels from the start? The offense has taken off. They were so stagnant and terrible offensively with Stetson Bennett and DeJuan Mathis and guys like that. JT Daniels gave them the spark they needed. It was just a little too late. But they just went on the road and beat what was a top 25 team in Missouri, 49-14. They were tied at 14 late in the second quarter and then scored 35 unanswered. Beating a top 25 SEC team on the road, that to me certainly justifies them jumping up 4 spots above a Coastal Carolina team that, yes, is undefeated. Yes, in our eyes right now is still a top 10 team. They deserve this spot. But when you go on the road and play a mediocre 500 Troy team and need a touchdown with 35 seconds remaining to win 42-38, I can't justify you being above a team like Georgia, who I know, again, has 2 losses, but again, is really, really hot right now. Really, really hot, and is winning in dominating fashion. So, Coastal Carolina, we didn't drop them. They didn't go up. They didn't go down. They stayed the same. They're still a top 10 team, but we put the Bulldogs above them at number 9. I think that is rightfully justified. Over in the second column here, see a lot of changes. This is where you see the most shifts in our rankings, and that's to be expected with so many teams losing, whether it be Miami, whether it be Florida, a handful of other teams like that, losing in Week 15. We'll start up here with Oklahoma, number 11. The Sooners moving up 1 spot in our rankings. They did not play this last weekend. They were supposed to play West Virginia. Instead, they get a week off, time to prep for Iowa State again in the Big 12 championship game. We will touch more on that game tomorrow. We're going to break down our conference championship predictions. So our 5 biggest conference championship games coming up tomorrow. Iowa State, Oklahoma, of course, one of the big ones. And we'll touch on that. But the Sooners up at number 11. They've won 6 straight games. They're right on the outside looking in of the top 10. USC in at number 12. We have the Trojans moving up 2 spots. They were down 28-10 against UCLA. Battled back, beat the Bruins 43-38. And you look at USC, they're headed to the Pac-12 championship game now. That win over UCLA gave them the South. Really, the Colorado loss to Utah gave them the South. But regardless, Trojans are still undefeated. Their passing attack is one of the best in the country. Graham Harrell's offensive coordinator, Keaton Slovis as quarterback, and a great wide receiver core. A lot of people think the Trojans have a legitimate case for the playoff if they beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. They think if USC can finish the season 6-0 with a conference title to their name, why aren't they getting as much discussion for the playoff like Ohio State is, who would more than likely finish 6-0 with a conference title to their name if they can beat Northwestern. A lot of people have a good point with that. Problem is, even with Ohio State, their strength of schedule is not that good. Strength of schedule certainly is not there for USC either. So I don't know if you have a great case for either of making the playoff, but because of the initial ranking, because of where Ohio State was, because of the talent that they brought back, because of where the committee, again, initially ranked them, Ohio State's going to get that edge if they both finish with the same record and the same accolades. Ohio State will have that edge. I don't think USC has a legitimate chance. I never thought they did. I never thought any Pac-12 team had a legitimate chance with the shortened schedule. But USC to us, still a top 12 team. They win the Pac-12. They're going to go to a New Year's Six bowl game. And I think, all things considered, that's a very successful year for Clay Helton, a guy that was on the hot seat, really was on the hot seat coming into this season. He needed this, and he's getting the job done. North Carolina and Iowa, 13 and 14. Those are two of our biggest risers in our Week 16 rankings. And I'll start with North Carolina here. They moved up 9 spots in our rankings. Some may say that's too high. I don't think it is. We had them at number 22. They were in and out of our top 25 constantly. Now they're up 9 spots because they just went on the road and beat number 10 Miami, what was then number 10 Miami, 62-26, and put up 778 yards of offense against the Hurricanes. Again, we said that we thought Miami would win that game. We thought that Miami had that slight defensive edge, and we were wrong on both sides. So when you go on the road and beat a top 10 team by 36 points, you deserve to move a lot in the rankings. And we have North Carolina up at number 13 after that dominating performance over a Hurricanes team that clearly just still is not there yet. Still isn't there yet alongside Texas. And oh, look at that. Look who we have at number 22 and 23. We'll touch on them in a second. But two teams that are right where they need to be, really, but two teams that are not quite back to their old dominating status like they want to be. Iowa in at 14. They're up 5 spots in our rankings because they just beat Wisconsin 28-7. Even though Wisconsin was not ranked in their matchup, the Badgers were somehow still a slight favorite on the road at Iowa. So Iowa, I thought, was getting a little disrespected to begin with. I thought they were getting disrespected for being home underdogs to a Wisconsin team that has been struggling mightily lately. Has now dropped 3 straight games after they were once a top 10 team, which is unbelievable. Really hard to think about. But Iowa winning that game by 21 points in the snow, yeah, they deserve to move 5 spots. Top 15 team, in my opinion. They have won 6 straight games. They're getting hot at the right time. And just think, if they had defeated Northwestern earlier in the year, they would be playing Ohio State in the Big Ten Championship and not the Wildcats, who we have in at number 15. Now I know, you could argue, what about the head-to-head result? Why is Iowa above Northwestern? Because the Wildcats beat the Hawkeyes back earlier in the year, like we just mentioned. Again, I look at quality of wins. I look at, obviously, the losses, who they were to. And I know Iowa's losses aren't great. I know they're not great at all. But I look at the quality of wins, the margin of victory, and how well each team has been playing as of late. Iowa, to me, has been playing better than Northwestern as of right now. So I know it's weird to look at our rankings and say the team that's playing in the Big Ten Championship, we have ranked lower than a team that is in their division and isn't even playing for the championship. I get that. But Northwestern, that loss to Michigan State, it still bothers me. It still bothers me. A team that is top 15 caliber, what was many thought would be a top 10 caliber team, to go on the road and lose to Michigan State like that, purely unacceptable. Purely unacceptable. Iowa murdered that same Michigan State team. And again, the Hawkeyes have won 6 straight games, most of them in dominating fashion. To me, they're playing better football than the Wildcats right now. We've got them 1 spot above Northwestern. Again, even look at margin of victory against Wisconsin. Iowa, 21 over the Badgers. Northwestern, only 10 over the Badgers, even though they forced 5 turnovers in that game. Number 16, BYU. We dropped the Cougars a spot. Because of Florida here, we had to do some rearranging. So BYU, we didn't really want to punish them that much. They didn't really deserve to be punished, but their win over San Diego State was relatively lackluster, only defeating the Aztecs 28-14, and it probably should have been closer. had the Aztecs had any sort of red zone offense. They don't slip near the goal line. They don't fumble near the goal line. San Diego State maybe sends this game to overtime or makes it a little bit closer than the 14-point deficit, 14-point loss. And even that, to me, was pretty close considering the game was played in Provo. So BYU didn't have their A game. Maybe still a little bit of a Coastal Carolina hangover, but a win is a win. We dropped them one spot, though, because we had teams like UNC and Iowa playing better than BYU. Also had a team like Florida lose, and we had to drop them. We weren't going to drop them out of the top 25. You can't drop a team that was 6 out of the top 25, but you can drop a team that was 6, 11 spots down to number 17. Some may say that's harsh. Some may say, whoa, hold on. The AP poll only dropped Florida 5 spots. You dropped them 11? Yeah, I did. They were 23-point favorites at home against an LSU team that just got murdered against Alabama, an LSU team that was starting Max Johnson, a guy that was getting his first career start, an LSU team that was very shorthanded. What they have, 54 scholarship players on Saturday night? All of that with your Heisman favorite quarterback in Kyle Trask, and you lose 37-34 because your defense can't show up, and Marco Wilson decided to chunk a shoe 20 yards? Yeah, you're going to drop 11 spots. I hate it. I hate it for you guys. I don't mean to be too harsh, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I'm not going to do what the AP does. I'm not going to do what the committee does and drop them only a handful of spots to make their game against Alabama look more appealing and maybe give Florida some sort of a chance at the playoff if they somehow beat Alabama, which isn't going to happen. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get political because that's what the AP does. That's what the committee does. They make it political. They make it appealing to the eye because that's money. That's money, and that's not what we're doing here. We're ranking the teams based on their performance. Florida has been suspect all year long. 2 of their 3 biggest games, Texas A&M and apparently now LSU, they have lost. They drop 11 spots all the way to 17. Their defense has not been there, and if they had made the playoff, if they had beat LSU, if they had beat Alabama, I had a pretty good feeling they probably would have gotten murdered against a team like Clemson, maybe Ohio State. They would have pulled an Oklahoma. Because it's great that you've got an offense, but if your defense can't show up, it doesn't matter. And that's what we were looking at with the Gators. So the loss to LSU, to me, inexcusable. The discipline from the Gators, especially Marco Wilson, inexcusable. They're dropping 11, and I think actually that's fairly generous. Louisiana in at number 18. They drop a spot. They did not play this last weekend, but they do play Coastal Carolina for the Sun Belt Conference title on Saturday. They will travel out to Myrtle Beach to take on the Chanticleers. So Louisiana, Coastal, that's going to be a big one. Tulsa dropping a spot down to number 19. They play Cincinnati, as we mentioned, in the American Athletic Conference championship game. Tulsa looking to play spoiler, and, things go their way. You see Cincinnati lose because Tulsa wins. You see Coastal Carolina lose to Louisiana. It would be interesting to see which team gets in as the highest-ranked Group of 5 conference champion. BYU technically classifies as a Group of 5 team, but with Louisiana with a win over Coastal and Tulsa with a win over Cincinnati, the committee would have to decide which of those 2 teams they want to put in as a New Year's Six bowl team, assuming, of course, it's not BYU. So that's something to keep your eye on. A wild scenario that probably will not happen, but still, Tulsa looking to play spoiler and keep their slim New Year's Six bowl hopes alive. Liberty in at number 20, moving up 1 spot. Their season's done. They did not play last week. 9-1 on the year for the Flames and Hugh Freeze, a guy who might be gone very soon to take the job at Auburn, replacing Gus Malzahn, who was just fired yesterday. We'll have more on that later on, way farther down the road. But still, Hugh Freeze and Liberty in at 20. Hopefully we'll get a good bowl destination. North Carolina State in at 21. They moved up 2 spots. Their season was done. They did not play last week. 8-3 on the year for Dave Doeren and his squad. An amazing bounce-back year. Should be in store for, again, another decent bowl destination that we will find out on Sunday or Monday. Texas, Miami, 22-23. Like we mentioned, 2 teams that want to be back. They desperately want to be back, and they just can't get there. Every year they have sky-high expectations. Every year they fool us. They find themselves in the top 15, sometimes the top 10, and then something like this last Saturday happens in terms of Miami, and they prove to everybody that they're just a tad bit overrated and still not to the point of being back. Texas, they didn't play. They moved up 2 spots in our rankings. Their game against Kansas was canceled So the Longhorns in at 22, and they will be retaining Tom Herman for another year. Some rejoice, some are upset. I understand both sides. Miami, on the other hand, they have dropped 12 spots in our rankings. We had them in at 11th. We kept saying they were just a fringe top 10 team. We could never put them into the top 10. I guess in a way we were right. We didn't view them as a top 10 team, and they didn't play like it. Again, losing by 36 points at home, allowing nearly 800 yards of offense at home to North Carolina. So we have the Hurricanes dropping 12 spots. And again, in doing so, they're right on the inside of the top 25, nearly dropped out, and will not be making a New Year's Six bowl game. Will not be making the Orange Bowl, a bowl that more than likely North Carolina will be going to. So a very disappointing performance for Miami. Manny Diaz and the Hurricanes still have a lot to figure out. Hopefully they can do that in time for their bowl game, try to salvage this season and finish on a strong note. But the Hurricanes and the Gators, two big dog Florida teams that were in the top 10 in the committee's rankings, dropping 11 spots and 12 spots. Hate to see it. And finally, Buffalo in at 24. Jarrett Patterson and the Bulls playing outstanding football. They beat Akron 56-7. Nothing to get too excited about. They moved up a spot in our rankings. They will face Ball State in the MAC championship on Friday. So that's a must-see football right there. That late week MACtion for a title between Ball State and Buffalo. Two surprising teams this year. Don't miss that one. Same goes for San Jose State. Never thought I would say that San Jose State is a top 25 team, yet here we are. The Spartans, off their best start, 6-0. Best start since 1939. They're making their first ever Mountain West Conference Championship game on Saturday, where they will play Boise State, always usually the Mountain West heavy favorite. And I think the Spartans have a legitimate chance here. They have defeated every team. They've won all 6 games by at least 10 points. They just came back from a 20-7 deficit against Nevada, won that game 30-20. There's a lot of fight in this team, a lot of grit in this team, a lot of passion, a lot of energy, a lot of talent that a lot of people don't know about. So Brent Brennan's Spartans out west, San Jose State, got them in as our final team in our final set of top 25 rankings. And their matchup in the Mountain West Conference Championship game against Boise, that could be one of the sneaky good games of Conference Championship weekend, and could be one of those sneaky upsets where the Spartans win that game, finish 7-0, and will find themselves in a very, very good bowl game for a team that has struggled, again, for the past 2 decades. So there you have it, guys. Our Week 16 Conference Championship GE Top 25, the final full set of Top 25 from us of the year. Again, Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, in our Conference Championship recap video, we will rank our top 6 teams. We will show what we believe the playoff matchup should be, and the 2 teams that we have leaving just out, sitting just out, number 5 and number 6. We'll have that for you, but this is our final full set of top 25. And as always, we want to hear from you. Tell us who you think is too high, who is too low. Were we too harsh to Florida? Were we too harsh to Miami? We want to hear from you. Who's too high, who's too low? Who's in that should be out? Who's out that should be in? It's your chance to criticize us, much like we have criticized the committee and the AP all season long. And I'm sure we're not done with that as the committee releases their set of rankings tomorrow, and of course their final set on Sunday. We'll have analysis on both of those coming your way very, very soon. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in that description below. If you love college football, everything down there is for you. Exclusive content from us over on Patreon. Exclusive offers from BetNow down in that description. Our expert picks, our weekly newsletter. Everything pertaining to college football, it's right there down in the description. So make sure to go give it a look. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.